straight from the chest. What's up, guys? I'm your host, Justin Groff. I want to thank you guys for listening, viewing, tuning in. I want to thank you for your listening ear. It means a lot to me. And guys, I just want to get right into it. I'm excited about this podcast because honestly, it's going to be a little bit different than the podcast that I've been doing, respectively, so in the past. What I mean by that is this is going to be a typical straight from the chest, something that I feel inordinately passionate about, and it's not going to be it's not going to be related to any one particular topic, but more so around the inherent structure that you should instill in your life if you want to see your best version. And I know you're probably thinking to yourself, but that's what you talk about all the time. I talk about that, and I talk about purpose, right? But this is going to be something that it might sound like I'm harping on because there's a certain position that a certain gentleman holds with regards to a certain thing, and I'll get all into this, but just kind of give you a brainstorm first, that I don't particularly agree with, and it definitely stems from my intense innate nature, rather as opposed to his more let's say passive, I don't know, the kind of passive expression that he carries. And I'm not going to list this gentleman's name because he's world known, and but just because he's world known and he has a footprint in his craft, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna agree with what he says, or I'm going to, and that's not a bad thing, guys. It's not a bad thing to disagree with somebody. It's not a bad thing to spark I would say a meaningful criticism, and it's not necessarily, I shouldn't say it's a criticism, but it's definitely a meaningful confrontation, it's, and so anyways, without further engagement in nothingness right now, I want to talk about what happened. And I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast. I love Joe Rogan. And I love him because he's so real and raw and uncensored, and I gravitate to that. That's who I gravitate to. And he had a particular person on the podcast, and I don't know what show it was or whatever, that doesn't matter. But he was speaking about how junk food affects people and how it's hard for them to quit. And I'm listening to this guy talk, and I agree with some of the points, and then he talks about how it's super hard and how people shouldn't feel bad about it. And let me give you some background on how this gentleman looks in terms of his energy, his demeanor, all that, because all that should be taken into account in the equation when you're hearing somebody's viewpoints and accesses to certain topics, because it matters. You can listen to intense people and they're not going to have the same type of vehicle in regards to their avenue that you have. And it's because they feel a certain way about it, and it's just like black and white and nothing in between. And then there are some people that are very soft-spoken, passive, and they feel for other people, and that's all good. We should all feel for people. But there's certain things you just got to draw the line with. And there's certain things that you just got to be disciplined with. And there's certain things you just got to be obedient and structured with, or else you'll wind up far down the rabbit hole where you can't get yourself back up. And that's what happens to people when they eat junk food, right? Now, let me back up a little bit. I've been saying that. Let me really gather my thoughts, because as you can tell, I'm just going sideways on this, because even as I'm thinking about what I'm going to talk about, it's stirring in my head and it's stewing in my gut, and I'm just getting innately aggravated with it. Not from an anxious standpoint, just from a passionate standpoint. And so, first off, this gentleman's demeanor is very passive, docile, and he is articulate. He knows what he's speaking of, and he's in shape. A white dude, in shape, lean, got some muscle on him. So he clearly follows suit in the lifestyle to be healthy, right? So he has some definite let's say he has some definite authority in the topic that he's talking about. And he deals with people that are trying to break their bad food addictions, or, I mean, that's what I gathered from it. And so he's telling Joe that people are innately biologically wired to want palatable foods. Palatable meaning sugary, salty, things that get the dopamine centers fired up, right? They attract the reward centers in your brain that cause you to want more. And that's essentially stemming from back in early ages when we didn't know when we were going to get our next meal. The body is wired to feed off of those dopamine centers, those reward pathways, because it wants to stow up food and fat or energy for a famine, possibly. To say, if there's a famine down the road. I mean, the body doesn't know, but the main mode of the body is to preserve and to extend the life of the organs and to help make sure that everything is running efficiently and properly, physiologically speaking. And so he is talking about how there are people that have, it's very hard for them to kick the junk food addiction. And we all know that. Like, if any of us have ever gone out to the store and bought a tub of ice cream and we go home and we're cheating ourselves and we think we're just going to eat a couple tablespoons. That's not how it goes. And I don't know about you, but I want to mash the whole thing. Because when I get those first couple tablespoons in, that's the best. But then from there, it's just gluttony to its fullest, right? I just want to mash the entire thing. And he's basically saying that is natural. Got it. Agree with you. Natural. But where he went sideways with me was how it was basically with regards to his approach. Now, some of you, if you're listening and you have a weight management issue right now and you're not actively exercising and eating well, at least 85, 90% of the time, you're going to have a problem with me. And this is probably not the podcast for you to listen to, but it's something that I feel that you should understand because this is my side of the story. And if you want to listen, great. If you don't, I understand. My word's not for everybody. And that's not what it was intended for, to be honest with you. But this gentleman's word is very passive in nature, where mine is a little bit more aggressive. And there are going to be people that take to the aggressive portion of somebody's enlightenment, and they're going to not. And there are going to be people that take more to the passive way, the more rudimentary way. And there's people that are not. So, I mean, it depends on who you are as a person and what you absorb and what you reflect better on. I mean, everybody's a little bit different, right? So me being an intense person, if you haven't figured that out already, and then this guy being somewhat passive, and you can definitely dissect it with him because of his posture, because of his energy, because of his decibel level in his voice, his mannerisms or lack thereof. His body, he's very, you can say he's probably very even keel, and I'm not. And so that promotes a little bit of an argument with regards to what we feel about on certain topics. So as he's talking about people, giving them essentially an out, and that's where I had a problem with. I had a problem with you giving people an out, or an out's quote unquote out. Like, he's not saying it's okay to eat junk food. He's saying, I understand that this is hard for you. I understand you're not alone. We all have this wiring. But where he really started to lose me was where I felt like he was covering a massive problem. He was laying a blanket over it, basically, in the way that I thought, in the way that I was processing it, by saying, we just have to do this and that and the other, and we have to da. Like, he was giving Joe kind of an overview of how he would treat somebody in his clinic. And to me, it just seemed too Sesame Street. It was just too Sesame Street. And I can't gravitate to that, because as somebody who lives a lifestyle that is predicated on structure, and structure because honestly, if I don't have structure, I'm going nowhere. And I think that that's something that we all should follow suit on. If you don't have a certain type of structure, I don't know where you're going. Like, you need to know where you're going from point A to point B. That's why you have MapQuest or you have Google Maps. Because you're not just going to aimlessly drive and think, oh, well, I'll get there sooner or later. I'll figure it out by road signs and whatnot. Like, yes and no. You want a definitive route. So you follow a map. So why wouldn't you follow a map for your life with regards to certain practices that are important to you if it's important to you to look better and feel better? And by eating junk food, yeah, sure, we're innately drawn to sugary and salty foods, but does that mean that you do them or eat them? Does that mean that you partake in the junk food epidemic that's killing off people and producing worldwide amounts of obesity and type 2 diabetes? I mean, you have to at some point say enough is enough and develop the discipline. Because newsflash, we all have the ability to eat Carl's Jr. if we want. We all have the ability to go to Vons and load up on sugar foods. But do we? You have to have the discipline and you have to make a choice. You either want to feel like ass or you want to feel your best. And if you're around people that are not eating that way or living that type of a life, then you got to get away from those people. Because they're going to be causing your destruction. And I mean, I understand when you're overweight and it's hard to get back down. It's hard to think like I want to be this is my goal weight. I want to be here. I want to be 170 when I'm weighing 340. Like, I get it. You're double the mark that you want to be at, but it starts with you applying discipline. And if some person's going to come to you and say, well, okay, this is okay. We understand where you're at because everybody's this way. We all understand that everybody has these desires and these palatable senses to want to gravitate towards these types of foods. But when are you just going to lay your hand down and say, enough is enough? You don't eat this because you don't want to be this way in the future. You don't want to look like this. You don't want to feel like this. And aside from looks, it's about feeling more than looking. I mean, looking comes as default to the measures that you take for eating a certain way and treating your body a certain way with exercise, etc. But you got to instill the discipline. And if you're not going to instill the discipline, nobody's going to. And so you're at a point where it's just you. This is you only. You don't have a team of people working with you. And you have to want it bad enough. This just comes down to you wanting it bad enough. If you don't want it bad enough, then I understand. But don't complain. We didn't shove the burger down your mouth. We didn't take the Milky Way and cram it down your throat because we don't want to live like that. We want to live healthy. We want to be we want to become and be enthralled in our purpose. And that is going to come from you being confident and building your esteem. And that's not going to come by way of you eating junk food. So there comes a point where you're just like, enough, dude. Like, I'm not eating that. And your position that you take with coming to a choice where I want to eat this, but I don't want to feel this way. But oh my gosh, it's so good. It's just firing these nerves in my body to want to eat more. And we all have that desire, but not every one of us is fat. Not every one of us has metabolic issues. So when I hear this Sesame Street type of person say, I get what he's doing. He's not criticizing. He's kind of neutralizing the situation with the person by saying, I understand where you're at. We all have that. Giving them acceptability. But I got a problem with acceptability when you're not becoming your best and you're actually ruining what God gave you. That's a problem to me. You can call me old-fashioned. I don't care. That's a problem to me. You don't throw away the good gifts and the body that God gave you just because you have an innate wiring to do so. We all do. Who cares? Get over it. Get some discipline under your ass and make sure that you're not feeding yourself into a frenzy and down a rabbit hole into destruction. We all have a choice. You have a choice to work out. You have a choice to eat right. I know this is all so rudimentary to you, but you're not grabbing it. Because if you still are spiraling down this hole, then you're not doing your part. And if you're not doing your part physiologically by feeding your body what it needs to be its best on a hormonal level, cellular level, neurological level, cognitive, all of that, then you're pissing your purpose away. There's a saying that I say to myself, and I'm going to share with you today. And I don't say this often, I don't say this ever on the podcast, but in my head, I say it constantly. And I only say it to myself because other people might take it a certain way, and that's not something that I want to go over with people. I just use it as my own ammunition. This is my saying. Get out of the way. Get out of my way. Because if you're not in my type of lane, in other words, if you don't have the same understandings and thought process that I do, I'm not discounting you. But if you like to live in that type of a style or a fashion, and I can't see you progressing, and I can see myself getting drained as a byproduct, get out of my way. Get out of my way. Because that's not how I'm choosing to go about this life. That's not how I'm choosing to accept myself. I know there's more. And I know there's more for me in the future. There's more for me at stake. But if I'm not willing to set the discipline and the structure and have that be my undertone, I'm not ever going to see those come to manifest. Even if God is on my side, because I still believe that God is giving me talents. He's giving me a structure in order to use that for my progression so that when I step into that door, I'm fully prepared. And it starts with what you eat. And it starts with what disciplines you set right now. So I'm not for the advocacy of, oh, well, yeah, we all have that. It's okay, kumbaya. No kumbaya. Get out of my way. If you're not on my same path, get out of my way. And that comes as a brigade to most folks because they want to be all together. I'll tell you what, I'm not cut from the same cloth as you. And that doesn't mean that I'm speaking that out of conceit or arrogance. It's coming from a sense of understanding that I know what was put in me. And I'm not allowing you or anybody else to let me, to make me feel comfortable on your level. Like it's okay that you're doing that. It's not okay. Wake up and understand it's not okay. And accept more for yourself because there's more at stake for you in the future. And there's more that God wants to do with you. But if you don't set the small but pivotal construct in your brain as discipline and structure and being obedient to those, no matter any motivation or inspiration comes your way, or positive thoughts come in your brain, it's not going to produce anything long term. You need discipline and structure. That's the tone to which every other thing will fall into place for. Everything. The moment that I started bodybuilding, the moment I made that shift in my life, and I didn't want to be the biggest bodybuilder in the world or the best, but the moment I said, I'm going to start lifting weights, the moment I did that, the moment I saw my body grow, the more incentive it drew to me to want to extend that and progress that. And that's probably from my addictive nature, yes. But I had a choice, take the easy way and just be kind of, regular with lifting weights and not really take it that serious or anything. And I'm glad that God gave me that gift to do that. Still got the same wiring issue. I'm still innately drawn to palatable foods. But who cares? Because I got more purpose over my life than what these junk foods are going to do for me in the moment. I'm stronger than the junk foods. I got more willpower than the junk foods have. I don't care what marketing scheme the junk foods have over commercials and over your brain and your neurological center. It can't get to me because I'm stronger than that, because I got a discipline that's deeply rooted. And that's what I consider that you would seek out. Consider seeking out a discipline center that everything has to go through. Everything has to filter through. I have a discipline center and a structure center that everything external has to filter through. And if it doesn't coincide with my progression, get out of my way. Bodybuilding has taught me to be organized, to be disciplined, to be structured. And that's why I give so much credit to bodybuilding. Not for the look, but for the psychological constructs that it's manifested in me. But see, that's all a part of the process. I see it now. 12 years ago when I started, I see it now. I see why. I see why I was supposed to go into bodybuilding. Twofold. One, it became me a personal trainer, and I'm working with people and I'm bettering people with a talent that God's given me. But I'm developing these constructs, these elements that are going to breed with me all the way to my dying day, and that are going to actually deflect negatives and other constituents that don't hold progression over my life. My discipline center, my structure center, something that I suggest that you build stronger and stronger every single day by way of your self-will. By way of your self-will. These discipline centers and these structure centers will filter anything that's coming in your life that's not fruitable or not for your progression, that's not advocating your purpose, right, in the end game. And if it's not, then you tell it. Get out of my way.